Let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at how a brand new generation is completely shifting the landscape of India's notoriously difficult civil services exam, the UPSC. If you've been watching this monumental test where, millions compete for just a few hundred administrative roles, you've probably noticed a massive demographic and cultural shift happening right beneath our feet. We are officially entering the era of UPSC 2.0, and the entire ecosystem is literally being rewritten from the ground up.
Those who believe UPSC is the same old process today are wrong. That statement right there perfectly captures our core focus today. The rules, the players, and the results of this prep are fundamentally transforming. To put the stakes into perspective, the UPSC has a brutal sub-1% success rate. Historically, the only way to beat those odds was locking yourself in a room for years with a mountain of physical books. But hey, that's not the only path anymore. A new demographic is stepping up, setting wildly different trends, and defining entirely new norms for how we process and master overwhelming amounts of information.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, UPSC 2.0 and the new rules of the game. Second, who are Gen Z? Third, millennials versus Gen Z. Fourth, smart work and AI tools. Fifth, digital prep, pros and cons. And finally, the fundamentals that haven't changed.
All right, let's get into Section 1, UPSC 2.0 and the new rules of the game.
You see, the actual geography of preparation has drastically changed. Previously, big cities completely dominated the results, mostly because that's where the elite coaching hubs were located. If you couldn't afford to move to the expensive streets of Delhi and pay hundreds of thousands of rupees for rent and tuition, well, you were starting at a massive disadvantage. But today, the internet and the boom of cheap mobile data have completely shattered those walls. The dream of cracking the country's toughest exam has moved directly into small towns and remote villages. World-class resources are now fully accessible practically anywhere. Those massive geographical and financial gaps that defined previous decades, they've shrunk significantly.
Moving right along to Section 2, who exactly are Gen Z? So, Gen Z, the generation born between 1997 and 2012, also known as Zoomers. These are the first true digital natives. Honestly, these are kids who could swipe screens before they could even walk. They literally don't know a world without smartphones, high-speed internet, and algorithmic feeds. Because they've grown up with the entire world's knowledge just a click away, their brains are practically wired for hyperfast information retrieval. They're highly tech-savvy, socially aware, and, perhaps most crucially, they place a massive importance on concepts that older generations kind of ignored. Think mental health, authenticity, and work-life balance. It means they approach problem-solving in a completely unprecedented way.
That brings us to Section 3, Millennials versus Gen Z.
When you pit the millennial era of preparation directly against the Gen Z era, the paradigm shift is pretty staggering. When millennials were prepping, we saw this massive explosion in the offline coaching industry. It was high cost, academic sources were fiercely guarded, and the learning process was mostly grueling trial and error. Honestly, millennials actually took pride in burning out. It was almost a badge of honor to survive on 3 hours of sleep, living entirely on endless books and caffeine. Gen Z, on the other hand, treats the process more like a highly optimized project. They rely heavily on YouTube, Telegram, and affordable online platforms. They don't hoard physical books, they organize abundant PDFs. And most notably, they actively integrate mental well-being and mindfulness into their routines rather than viewing exhaustion as a strict requirement for success.
Now, if you listen to the advice from older top rankers from the millennial era, think Tina Dobby or Iris Singhal, their guidance heavily centered around relentless discipline, exhaustive cover-to-cover reading, and long-term grinding consistency. But listen to the newer toppers from the Gen Z era, like Shruti, Ishita, or Aditya Shrivastava. The language of success has evolved so drastically. Their key phrases are strategic planning, multiple revisions, digital resources, and smart use. It's no longer just about who can sit at a desk the longest. They are aggressively focused on working smart and leveraging systems to multiply their efforts.
And the results prove this optimized approach actually works in the real world. Take Anuj Agnihotri, for instance. He's an AIMS doctor who cleared the exam in his third attempt. A decade ago, candidates routinely quit their lives entirely to study. But being a medical doctor, Anuj obviously didn't have endless hours of free time, right? He utilized targeted digital strategies to balance a demanding career with exam prep. Or consider Asta Singh. She cleared this incredibly complex exam at just 21 years old without any formal coaching whatsoever. With digital prep, highly focused strategic planning, and consistency, that old requirement of traditional, full-time offline coaching has officially been dismantled.
Let's jump into Section 4, Smart Work and AI Tools.
The Gen Z Smart Prep formula turns the exam into almost a data mining operation rather than a traditional academic pursuit.
it still starts with step 1, which is establishing a rock-solid foundation using NCRTs, the foundational Indian school curriculum books. But step 2 is where the magic happens. Instead of just blindly reading dozens of thick reference books and hoping for the best, they aggressively analyze previous year questions, or PYQs, to map out specific data patterns. Once they know exactly what the examiners favor, they hit step 3, utilizing advanced AI tools to create hyper-targeted summaries and mind maps based purely on those high-yield patterns.
AI tools are literally revolutionizing a student's daily routine. Actually, think about how you could apply this to your own life or career. Imagine cutting your own project research time in half just by letting AI do the foundational heavy lifting. There are systems now that can generate personalized test series on the spot. They analyze a student's specific testing data to pinpoint exactly what their weak areas are and instantly redirect their focus. And instead of sitting for 3 hours meticulously writing notes from a long video lecture, AI can summarize that video perfectly in seconds. This saves countless hours of manual labor and engineers a highly customized, lightning-fast learning ecosystem. Now for Section 5, Digital Prep, Pros and Cons.
So, on the positive side, top-tier mentorship is now truly democratized. Teachers who used to be completely out of reach are now accessible to anyone with a Wi-Fi connection, saving massive amounts of money and leveling the playing field. But we have to talk about the flip side. This digital revolution comes with a serious, often paralyzing double-edged sword. This absolute abundance of sources has led to massive information overload. Students are drowning in hundreds of unread PDFs, and here's the ultimate irony. They're studying on the exact same devices they use for entertainment. That leads straight into the doom scrolling trap. You open your phone to check a historical date and suddenly, poof, you've lost 2 hours to short videos. Social media has become a monumental distraction that can absolutely shatter consistency.
Depth has decreased, width has increased. This quote perfectly captures the inherent danger of this new era. By relying so heavily on instant AI summaries and bite-sized PDF notes, instead of patiently reading the actual foundational texts, students are gaining a vast, wide array of superficial knowledge. Sure, the width of what they know has certainly increased, but they are losing that profound depth. They're losing the critical, nuanced understanding required to actually clear the trickiest parts of the UPSC exam. It's like you might know a lot of scattered facts, but you lose the ability to connect them together.
Furthermore, while technology helps bridge those massive geographical and financial gaps, we have to acknowledge that deep-rooted structural and social categories still deeply impact a student's journey today. Factors like gender, regional diversity, caste, and tribal versus non-tribal identity, they still play a subtle but very real role in the preparation ecosystem. Technology is an incredible tool for sure, but it is not a magic wand that instantly erases centuries of complex societal structure. The hurdles might look a bit different now, but these social realities haven't entirely disappeared just because of the internet.
Let's wrap things up with Section 6, Fundamentals that haven't changed.
Despite all the impressive AI algorithms, the instantaneous summaries, the clever strategic planning, and those endless libraries of digital PDFs, there is one undeniable truth that brings this all back to earth. Shortcuts do not crack the UPSC. Period. You absolutely cannot bypass the rigorous demands of this examination. Technology offers unprecedented support, and yes, it makes the journey way more efficient. But there is no digital hack in the world that replaces the actual grueling work required to master a subject.
The ultimate takeaway from this explainer is this. Whether it's 2014 or 2024, the vehicle you use to prepare might change completely, but the fuel required to cross the finish line remains exactly the same. The game has undeniably evolved, but the winning principles have not. If you want to succeed, you still need to start with those basic foundational school textbooks, the NCERTs. You still need an incredible amount of unwavering patience. You still require strict, unyielding discipline. And you absolutely must maintain long-term consistency. Gen Z has completely revolutionized how they study, but they haven't changed what it takes to win. The landscape of learning is constantly shifting, and it's absolutely fascinating to see how each generation adapts to conquer these monumental, life-changing challenges. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this generational shift. Is technology ultimately making us smarter, more efficient test takers, but maybe shallower thinkers? What do you think is the most strikingly different aspect of Gen Z's approach compared to the generations before them? Drop your insights in the comments below, and as always, keep learning.